Paul.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we're on, Paul. Thank you.
Hi.
This might be water of a duck's back for you, because I know that you've been in the industry for a long time, but also you've probably done quite a few interviews over your lifetime as a musician, right?
I have to the point where I can't remember any of them. I can't remember who to, what I said, what it was about. I think it was usually about guitars and music.
Well, well, there's plenty to be said about guitars and music, because I was just looking you up on iTunes, and it's really so impressive and so inspiring, I should say, as a fellow musician, to see quite the achievement as far as how many albums you've put out and how much you've achieved as a musician. And yeah, I mean, where would you like to start, Paul? Because have you done another album since I last saw you?
I've got 3 albums ready to be released. But the thing is
just
with
3?
The lockdown, just the 3, and I've got an idea for the next one already fermenting. But the thing is that with the lockdown, not making any money, I haven't made any money to be able to afford to press the albums, and I haven't had any gigs to sell the albums, because the albums sell at gigs. I sell a few MP3s through iTunes, and Spotify. There's a lot of people streaming stuff, but it's the outlay with no gigs is the kind of. So I've got these 3 albums. What I'll do with them, I don't know, but I
hope you'll sell them at some point. I mean, I totally get that over lockdown. I've spoken to quite a few musicians, and yeah, there weren't any gigs. And I know that you do a lot of gigs usually, don't you? You've gigged all over the world, right?
Yes, America, all over Europe, all over America, China, can't remember, Canada, can't remember. I mean, I started gigging when I was about 15, and I'm 55 now. So, times of lots of gigging, times of not so much gigging. But certainly in the lockdown, I've realised that this is the longest I've been in one city since I was about 15.
Right.
Like 2 years in one city is like, what? I'd be going somewhere at some point, whether it was London or Glasgow or Germany or America. And but so yeah, I've made these albums. I've made these albums, and they've sold consistently worldwide, and not in any huge kind of buying yachts or mansions capacity, but as people still come up and tell me that I've had your CD in the car and I still listen to it all. It's on in the car all the time, and it's like I just do it for the music, Anna. I love the music. I've never sat down and said, okay, I'm going to make an album, and then like start with track 1, track 2, track 3. What I've just constantly in the studio, producing, composing, developing, mixing, and experimenting, and then I'll suddenly go, oh, you've got enough material for an album there now.
So you're already in the flow.
Yeah.
You're already in the flow of creating.
Yeah. So I'm working all the time, and then you kind of get these bites of 12 to 15 tracks where you think, there's an album. So you put that out, and then you keep working another year or 2, and then you've got another 15 tracks. And I mean, the album, as anybody would know, the album is kind of, as a concept, as a format, where is the album today? But I mean, I'm sitting here now and I'm looking at me hi-fi and me turntable and me vinyls and me CDs, and I'm so much more back into listening to albums like I used to do, rather than parts of tracks. I listen to an entire album now.
Because they've got there's a whole arc, isn't there, when people do an album where they thought about it in terms of it. Well, that's kind of slightly contradicting what you just said, but when you arrive at a place of an album, you can it looks like it works as a body of music together as an
Totally.
entity, doesn't it? Rather than, oh, I'll just use that track, that track, and that track. And so these just the three that you've done over lockdown. That's an extraordinary accomplishment right there. Which ones are you excited about? Is it because you've done so much music, or you said you arrived at a place where they are all albums. But which ones? Yeah, is it the last one? Sometimes it's the last one we just did, or is it all of it? Or
I'm happy with them all. I mean, there's one there that I'd quite like to put out as a double vinyl. And then I think, well, it could be a single CD or it could be a double vinyl. The other one, I mean, it's. But when I get to the point of, say, an artist will go into the studio to make an album and they've got 15 songs to record, right? And I don't do it that way around. I just record until I've got the 15 tracks, but they do stand together because they're from that period of time.
right.
Do you know what I mean? So if they're done within a 12 to 18 month period, then they sound like a body of work. Like I could take a track that says I've got 15 albums. With the unreleased albums, let's say I've got 18 albums, right? If I took one track off each of those albums and put them together, it wouldn't sound like an album, because there's 25 years across the board.
Of course, yeah. And absolutely, it's such a long time that over that period of time you've released, is it 7, did you say 18 albums that you've released already before these 3?
15 released with 3 in the can, ready to go.
Oh, I mean, that's an incredible accomplishment. And I'm really excited to hear the newest ones. What were the themes that were going on with the latest ones? Again, was it, well, you tell me.
Well, the latest one is called Covers Night, and it's like cover tunes. It's guitar versions of classics, like there's the Carpenters, Glenn Campbell, Bob Dylan, just all kinds of wonderful tunes that I can't write. So I've kind of done them with guitar. Some of them are piano guitar, some of them are like the full band, some of them are solo guitar, some of them are just guitar.
I'm just wondering what's happened to the sound.
I can hear you fine. Can you hear me?
All right, this has just gone, I think it's just gone down. Yeah, you seem to, it's just gone a bit quiet there. As long as you can hear me, I'm hoping it will be okay. Yeah, I'll just pause this just for a second. Let's see if it's picked up again. I think it's okay. Yeah, so you were saying, so this new covers album.
Well, it's called Covers Night. It's like I'm just fascinated by music, Anna. I mean, I'm fascinated by the greats. I'm fascinated by Hank Williams, by Buddy Rich, Frank Zappa, Miles Davis, Jimi Hendrix, the Carpenters, ABBA, Adele, Led Zeppelin. I mean, I'm just absolutely fascinated by Beethoven, Mozart.
I remember I can remember the way
everything.
that you would speak about, well, it's so, there's so much there, isn't there? And it as a musician, that we never get tired of it. It's always really tempting when something catches your ear, something new, then you're hooked in again, and you want to listen to it and explore it and see what's going on. But when you started, it was more right at the beginning. Has it always been multifaceted, your interest in music, what you've been interested in, but you were playing more blues at the beginning, right?
Yes. Well, I mean, to go right back at the beginning, like most kids growing up in the 1970s, I was fascinated by rock and guitar bands like The Sweet and Slade, and so that was, I was into guitar rock bands. And
okay, so then, not quite so much blues then.
Yeah, but I would only be about 10, 9 or 10. And then, like, as I got into my teens, I discovered Hendrix, and then I heard Hendrix play blues. So I sought out the blues players that Hendrix talked about, like Buddy Guy and B.B. King and Freddie King and people like that. And then, I kind of got, it's quite a circuitous route, but then I kind of got into, not metal per se, but there was this kind of, I mean, metal happened. I wasn't into metal, but there was this kind of, remember Adrian Ballou, Twang Bar King and all of that?
I think I do, because I think you told me about him.
Yeah. And it's like this experimental thing, this exploration that was going on in the guitar world. And there was some really kind of like extraordinary experimental guitar players who were really pushing the boundaries. And I kind of got seduced by that.
And
I
Frank
went down
Zappa, of
that
course,
road.
yeah.
Of course, absolutely. And other guys like Alan Holdsworth and Eddie Van Halen and stuff. So this is just like kind of speaking as a guitar player and kind of round the whole thing off. But, you know, and I kind of got taken down that road of experimentation and working on the technique. And I moved to London. I didn't know anybody. So I spent a lot of time just working on my technique. And I found it to be a bit of a dead end. You know, I kind of thought, I've got this technique, but I wasn't enjoying. I didn't realize it at the time. So anyway, a mate of mine was at the music library, and he got a Deep Purple album out, and Deep Purple made in Japan. And we sat down and listened to it, and it was just like a rock band playing great tunes, you know, and great guitar playing. And it wasn't show off guitar playing. It was like guitar playing that made you excited you and made you feel good. And
Yeah.
it kind of reminded me, oh, that's why I wanted to be a guitar player. So I kind of abandoned the technical side of things and went
having accomplished
acquired,
it.
yes. Having accomplished it and recognizing that probably 75% of it's unnecessary.
Oh,
so, and then kind of, so I would say like by the time I got to my late 20s, early 30s, I recognized that what people had been telling me for years, which was A, you want to start writing, and B, you want to start singing. And so rather than working just on the guitar and going round and round and round and round, I started writing. And this is where the albums thing came from, you know.
Oh, so your first album was in your 30s?
On my first album, when I was 24 when I made my first album.
Oh, okay. All right. But yeah, the focus shifted in your 30s.
Yeah. I made a cassette album called Homework that we sold at various gigs that I was doing. And then I got a flat on Abbey Road in London.
Oh, did you?
And I got this little 8-track recorder, and I started experimenting, and I started singing, and I started writing. And kind of the obsession with being got to be the best and the cleverest and the fastest guitar player just like evaporated. And I just wanted to, you know, I just wanted to play tunes and write tunes and vocals and harmonies and lyrics and stories and atmosphere. And I kind of got into ambience and that's where my obsession with, so like any advice to any guitar player who might be watching, who might be remotely interested in anything that I've got to say,
I'm sure they will.
Well, is to pay attention to what I was told that I didn't pay attention to, which was get into writing, get into singing, get into songs. You know, now I'll sit here. I've got my music collection all around us. Very little of it is guitar playing. It's the Beatles, it's Supertramp, it's Steely Dan, it's, you know, Bach, it's Beethoven. Guitar alone doesn't interest me enough anymore. I'm not interested enough in guitar by itself. It has to be a part of something, a part of a song, a part of a band, a part of a composition, with lyrics, with vocal harmonies, with stories, with experience, with expression. The guitar.
You said the guitar alone. I mean, you say that, but that's been a long progression, really, from having accomplished and having attained that level of, I might just add that you are a phenomenal guitarist. I'm going to use that word, phenomenal. And you are, one of the best guitarists in the world. Just that small little point that I would like to bring into this interview, because we're talking about this and that and understated, and for you to say that guitar alone doesn't interest you, I totally get that. but it did interest you sufficiently for long enough in your life to become one of the best guitarists in the world, and that is incredible. And I love that you I wouldn't necessarily say that matured exactly is the right word, but progressed from that once you. So you just saying that yes, you obsessed with competency and technique and stuff. You saying that as opposed to somebody else saying that is quite different in that, because you did attain such a masterful level of competency before you graduated, if you like, or certainly moved on to really explore songwriting and writing, and also production, because you produced all your own albums, haven't you?
Yeah, and I've produced albums for other people as well. You know, I've produced to the albums of my own, but be they released or as yet unreleased. I've produced about 5 or 6 albums for other artists as well. And I mean, I practiced when I was living in London in my early 20s. I was practicing like 5 or 6 hours a day. You know, it's like 5 or 6, literally.
That's
because
fantastic.
I had no friends, or I didn't have any money to go to the pub. So all I could do was basically sit in the house and play the guitar until somebody came with money to go to the pub. so that's where the technique that's where the technique came from. That time, that era. I don't regret it, because it's like I've learned. You know, it's like, listen to the guitar. I'm acquainted or friendly with a guy on the internet who was a guest on my show called Louis Shelton. And he played guitar on all of the Monkees stuff, and he played all of the Lionel Richie stuff, you know, like Hello.
My goodness.
He played the guitar solo on Hello. He played guitar on all of the Jackson 5 stuff. All of the Jackson 5 stuff.
Oh my goodness. How do you know him?
I was doing a performance online, and his nephew saw me, and he sent the link to his uncle, and Louis watched, and then Louis Shelton emailed, and he's done like Art Garfunkel, he's done Kenny Rogers, he's done Sammy Davis Jr., he's done like ridiculous amount of stuff. And you look at his perception of where a guitar belongs in the music, in the song. There's a guy who you can learn so much from, you know. But he said he was doing the Monkees, and they had Last Train to Clarksville. And they said, Louis, we need a riff that kind of sounds like the Beatles. So he goes, doo-doo. He just played the Last Train to Clarksville. Where's the last train to Clarksville? And you know, it's like, it has to be a part of something. Otherwise, this might sound harsh, but you might as well sit in a guitar shop on a Saturday afternoon and show off.
If it's not kind of in context with a bigger picture and communicating, and I appreciate that it can feel quite insular. And I do remember you saying that, I think it was several years ago when we worked together, because we worked together on First Day, and you did a phenomenal, I'm going to use that word twice, yes, again. It was.
Use it as many times as you like.
Well, it was just brilliant, the solo that you did on Blow, the track Blow on my album, and you did a counter melody, and it was absolutely brilliant. And I can remember you saying at that time that you were kind of done with doing albums on your own, and that you wanted that collaboration, and you wanted that connection. I guess it comes and goes, and also because of lockdown, there wasn't that we could collaborate online, but we couldn't get together and play live. But you have played live all over. You have played live all over the world. And are you doing more of that now, or are you doing? Let's talk about you. There's so many things I want to talk about. I don't really know where to start, but you were doing you still doing the YouTube every Sunday?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay. So tell us about that. Did that carry on? And also, did it carry on over lockdown?
Oh yeah. Well, it became like my primary outlet as an artist, not my primary income as a businessman, but it certainly became my primary outlet as an artist. I started streaming, and I really got into it. And once again, I had to investigate and dismantle and work out how everything worked so that I could get the best thing that I could possibly do. and then lockdown happened, and suddenly, rather than it being like a supplement to the live stuff where I would have a night off, I'll do a live stream or I'll whatever, it became everything because there was nothing else happening. So I'm approaching 300 shows now, and
Are
every
you?
show's like so every show's like 90 minutes long. So 300 times 90 minutes. If you want to go back and watch them all, I'll. I
I
don't
don't know
want
if I
to.
watch all of them, but that is, but I guess they're all up there. So are they all on your
Yeah,
YouTube channel?
yeah, yeah.
And how does it work, Paul? How do you prepare for those? Do you do album tracks or do you do improvisation? What happens on the? I mean, I have seen a couple of them, and I seem to remember. I think you were improvising on the ones that I saw.
Yeah. Well, a lot of the tracks that I've recorded, a lot of them were lost because of upgrading computers or failed hard drives or whatever. But a lot of the tracks that I've done for like standalone YouTube videos or album tracks or unfinished or parked, unused tracks, I basically took the vocal off, I took the guitar off, and just play along to it live. You
Oh,
know,
right,
so
okay.
so it's kind of, but some of it's improvised. Well, it's all improvised as far as solos are concerned. But I'll do some improvisation. Use the loop pedal. I'll have a piano there. I do some pads, like synth pads with a sustain pedal, and play over the top of that, or I play over backing tracks. I've had a few guests on, and like Louis from the session guy, who's just done so much incredible the Carpenters. I mean, sorry, I don't
Well,
want to get sidetracked.
well, that's fair enough. You've worked with some pretty good. I can remember you going off to New York, and were you working with the
Mm.
Brecker brothers, or is that right?
Yeah, the drummer out of the Brecker Brothers is kind of like my regular drummer in New York, for the want of a better term. And Randy Brecker played trumpet on an album for me. Mark Egan from the Pat Metheny group plays bass with me over there. A great drummer called Joel Rosenblatt, who's played with does like Robin Ford and Larry Carlton and people like that. He plays drums for me in New York. So I mean, you've got to cast your net. You've got to cast your net, and I think being on the internet's great. It's an excellent thing, unimaginable for us as kids in the 70s or the 80s. At the time when we were trying to make a start in the music business,
Absolutely, yeah.
unimaginable.
Would never
But
anticipated this.
yeah, but the physical connection with fellow human beings is absolutely vital. You can't strike relationships with these caliber and these kinds of musicians in wherever, New York or London or whatever, without actually standing and having a conversation. You can't just. I mean, how many emails have I sent out and got zero response? Not even a no thank you.
It can be such a challenge, actually. Yeah, and then what ones come in. I mean, how did the thing in China happen? Because you still tell these stories about that you did, so you still actually got to these places. I can't remember that. I only went off to
Yeah,
Sweden at one point at the Montreux Jazz Festival, I seem to remember, or around the
yeah.
time you were playing there, weren't you?
Well, that's a story in itself. What happened was, I was playing in Germany. There's a band in Germany. I had like a bass player and a drummer, and they had another band in Germany. And there was a guy who was a businessman based from Munich, who was based in Shanghai, and he heard this band, and he said, "I'm looking for a band to play in China for all of my German employees. So bring a German band over to entertain German people in China." And that's how that happened. We had 2 trips to China.
I remember
Switzerland,
that, yeah.
Switzerland and the Montreux Jazz Festival. I was in New York, and I woke up one Sunday morning, and there was an email from somebody saying, "Do you want to come and play at the Montreux Jazz Festival?" I said, and yeah, well,
Brilliant.
yes. But
Oh, I don't know.
yeah, but at the time, I was desperately homesick and alone in New York, and I've got lots of friends in New York who I miss, and I'm looking forward to seeing again. But at that time, I'd been there about 10 months, basically.
Oh, I
And
didn't know
so
you were there that long.
well, it was longer than that. It was about 18 altogether, but I came back and forwards a few times. And I found that the music business in New York was very, very tough. and all of the musicians there. I mean, some of the most incredible musicians I've ever met in my life, and they're kind of struggling. They're getting a few sessions, but maybe 20, 30 years ago they'd be working 7 nights a week.
All right, but you've noticed a change. I wonder what do you attribute that to? Because I thought there was quite a thriving live opportunity for for live work, live scene, I should say, in New York. You kind of assume there would be.
There is, definitely. I'm just going to guzzle some tea, Anna. Hang on a second.
That's all right. Well, actually, before you answer that, I just realised we've been chatting for a little bit. Let's try and what should we have a listen to on? I'm seeing 10 and The Real Thing. Which is the most recent album? Or which one which would you like, Paul? What should we listen to? That's on iTunes.
I really don't mind. I don't mind.
Oh,
10.
Okay.
The Real Thing. I don't know what The Real Thing is. I don't know if that's one of mine.
All right.
Just play something as long as it's not somebody else's.
I said Paul, unless it's, you've done so many albums, maybe you forgot you did that one. Although if you don't recognise it, you probably didn't. Okay, let's have a listen to, let's just have a, let's share this as well.
That's recording now, yeah.
All right, okay. I hope that picked up.
Right.
I hope that picked up your track. Well, you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to, just in case it didn't, I'm going to do it again. We'll just listen to a little bit more. Let's try a different one. All right. So, which one would you choose?
Well, play Past Myself, the one that you were playing before, because it's about. I was enjoying listening to that myself. Actually, I've listened to that for years.
Oh, that sounds amazing. And
I haven't listened to that for ages.
It sounded just stop me in my tracks. I'm not really bothered about what I ask next because they're just, the music speaks for itself, like you said, and it's a lovely room. I mean, I could listen to your music. I haven't listened to your music for a while, but it's the same with your YouTube lives. I just want to make sure this is turned. I think we're good. When I did listen to one the last time I did, there's a real mesmerizing, because your improvisation is so you've mastered it because you've been doing it for so long, and you're such an accomplished player that to a musician, to any musician, we always really appreciate listening to that. You really just get lost on that. And I know that like, I hope it's all right to mention that you have a spiritual side to you as well. And I can remember us talking about there's something quite meditative. I know that was like a bit more of an up tempo track, but some of those tracks, I think when I was watching one of your lives, there was like it went off on one that felt like quite meditative. So do you feel that connection with your playing?
Yeah, totally. Totally. I mean, it's the source of where I start, of where I'm sitting here now looking out of my eyes at the world, right? But this is something that an old friend of mine said in London years ago. Where is the person that's looking out? It's like I heard a brain surgeon say, people are going to start wondering what I was quite interested in what Paul Rose was talking about, but then he just started to say this. But I heard a brain surgeon say it in a meeting that he said, I'm talking to somebody and I can see their eyes and I can see them and and I know their personality and I can hear their voice and they're smiling or he says, and then I open their head up and he says, there's nobody there. You know, he says, and then I put them back, and then the next day when they're in recovery, I'm speaking, there they are again. And so I've just been behind their eyes. There's nobody there, you know.
That is, that is strange.
Yeah.
That's just,
So it's like,
I get it, but it is, you get it more if you are the actual brain surgeon. I certainly wouldn't want to try that out and
yeah.
confirm or deny it
But
myself.
I think so. Where our personalities come from is where our music comes from, basically. And and possibly it isn't. You know, are we receivers? Are we receiving consciousness from elsewhere? I don't know. I have no idea. I think that might be what's happening. You know, in that consciousness is everywhere and we receive it like a radio. You know.
Well, it's very finely tuned radio in your case, because there's no chance of me picking up a guitar anytime soon and finally tuning in and coming out with that. So there's certainly an interplay. If it is coming from consciousness from outside of us, there's certainly the interplay with us. And so to get kind of to stay with you, because I feel I know I'm a bit more on more slightly more certain territory when I talk about you than ever. Try and talk about your music through consciousness. Well, I love that, and I asked that question because I asked the question because I know that is important to you, and because I felt that when I was listening to one of your improvisations on your YouTube channel. I felt that, and is that important to you when you're playing? Do you think of it like that, about how it's about what you're giving to the audience? Maybe not as you're giving it, but how do you set up those lives? Do you think, right, I'm going to, I think I did ask that just a little bit earlier in the interview, but do you allow for that kind of connection? And does it feel like that's happening when you're actually on the screen rather than in front of someone?
I think so. And I mean, so let's say, for argument's sake, I've got 50 backing tracks in the library. So I'll play 10 tracks a night. Or I don't know how many tracks I've got in the library for the backing, for the show. And every week I'll think, well, you played that last week. You played that last week. Oh, you haven't played that one for a while. So I try and keep the show fresh. And I don't just want to play the same numbers over and over and over and over again. And I worry that I do sometimes. But I just try to make the music as authentic and as sincere and as musical as I possibly can. I don't want to sit there and just show off. There's enough guitar players on the internet showing off. We don't need another one. And I don't want to be that guy.
You certainly don't show off.
Well, one thing that I do know is that I get a lot of private messages and comments, but a lot of private messages where people will say, you know, that they're worried about the virus, they're worried about coronavirus, they're worried about this, they're worried about that. And that hour and a half that I play is an island where they can forget about all of that. And they can just allow the music to take them over. And I've had people thank me and say, we really appreciate your effort and it's great that you do it. And it's I mean, so I do have some kind of understanding of how much people are getting from it, you know, and I value that enormously.
Yeah, I did when I listened to it. It was a while ago that I've listened to it, if I'm going to be totally honest. But I remember having it, and it was online. But I did, contrary to what we were saying about you can't replace the live thing. But I can remember getting that feeling of I felt like I was transported. But also, for the period of time listening to improvisation, it was so. It just felt like it was so good for the soul. just felt like there was something happening that was like, yeah, I guess it's a respite, like you said, or an island, and
Yeah.
music does provide that for people. It does provide, I don't want to say escape, because I think there's something, even though it can provide an escape, but there's something very, that it is a language of its own, in which there's a connection. It connects in perhaps in ways that don't happen when we're in other parts of our life, in its own unique way, in the way that specific arts all do in their own way. But it's so valuable for that reason. And your music, anyone that is an accomplished improviser, I think they have that about them, to be able to do that, because you really get lost and absorbed listening to it. But it was really fantastic. So is that happening every week, Paul?
It has been. It has been. Just before we move on, just to say the thing about music being an escape, it's actually the reverse of an escape. You're actually connecting with something far more substantial and important than the rubbish coming out of the television or the radio or the newspapers or social media. You know, the mainstream media, it would seem, is basically there solely to create panic and uncertainty.
Well, there's a lot of that around at the moment as well, with everything that's going on in the Ukraine, and also around COVID.
Yeah.
There was the daily stuff of that, and it was escalating panic. Yes, and music, music can be such a lovely tonic for that. Can be really medicinal in that sense.
I think people can see that it's an escape, but you could say that it's an escape, but that escape is actually connecting with your authentic self. So it isn't an escape.
No.
It's a return. You know.
Yeah, we've got a couple of gurus on today.
Great.
No, I love it. I certainly, because we have these kind of conversations, and absolutely, because as I was saying the word escape, I was thinking, I don't want to use that word, because it doesn't feel like that's what's happening, even though that's it's so common that people say that that's what's happening. But I love that. It's a return. And please don't stop returning with your music. Keep, I know you don't need me to tell you, but I know you did say that that it has been hard, because obviously with COVID, there's been no live stuff. So have you got live things happening this year, Paul?
Yeah, loads of stuff. I mean, I've joined. We were just on the road last week. We did 4 gigs last week, and we're going to France next week. We're in Germany more or less most of April. A good 15, 16 shows in April are in Germany. And then we've got Belgium, Netherlands, Spain, Italy, France. So we had like a 60-date tour for 2020. And that 60-date tour has been picked up and dropped into 2022. But the additional gigs have also been added to that tour. So I think all in all, we've got about 70 shows for the rest of this year.
Oh, that's fantastic. That must feel well, not more than a relief, but it's really exciting to have had the drought of COVID and be going from that to this. So give me all the links, won't you, for the well, maybe not all of them, because there's 70. Maybe we can't get that on a post, but give me your YouTube link, and then some of the dates that are coming up where people can see you, because there's people from all over the world on this particular group, and I'd love people to know more about you if they'd love to come and see you. And whether you're a guitarist, whether you're a musician, whatever you're doing in the arts, you've got to check Paul out, because it's beautiful music, and it's really accomplished, the kind of accomplished musicianship that you get from somebody that's been doing it for a lifetime, and that knows what they're doing, and that really knows what they're doing. And that does come from, thank God for the 5 to 6 hours that you did spend when you were in Abbey Road Studios. I know you said you might have rather been somewhere else, but we're all greatly, it's greatly to our benefit that you did, because as a musician and as an artist, and for all the other artists, it's always so inspiring when you do actually. I've known you for years, and I'm quite nervous chatting to you because I'm such a fan of what your music and also what you represent and as a role model. And it must sound a bit strange me saying it because I know you as a friend, but I do genuinely feel that. I'm quite humbled and thank you so much for doing the interview, Paul. And give me the links, let people know where you're going to be, and making up for lost time. That's hopefully there won't be any more of that COVID drought, so we can enjoy much more live music, and especially from you. So thank you so much.
Absolute pleasure. I mean, the links, obviously, I'll send you the links in the next few minutes after the interview. But I mean, if you just search Paul Rose Guitar or Paul Rose Guitarist, that'll. I mean, the YouTube channel's kind of where it's at because of all these live stream, because of the COVID and the live streams. That's more or less that's the entirety of what I've done in the last 2 years.
And you've got the dates on there.
Yeah, the dates go on my Facebook page. I'll send you 3 links, just the 3.
Okay. Yeah. All right then. Thank you so much, Paul. And hopefully I'll get to see you live. Are you going to do London at all?
We did London last week.
Oh, Paul. I wish I'd known about that. You kept that.
I'm sorry, I didn't. I forgot. I'll tell you, I completely forgot. I'm sorry. I should have sent you a message. We were at the Powerhouse in Camden.
Oh, that's brilliant. Oh, well, I'm glad that you played anyway. And make sure you invite me to the next one.
Definitely. We'll be back in London soon.
All right, then.
I'll be back in London soon.
All right, then. So I'll see you soon, hopefully. And look forward to checking out the YouTube and everyone else, and check out the live dates in your respective countries, because it sounds like you're going to be all over the place. So yeah, it's brilliant. All right then, Paul. All the best.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.